My name is Dr. Maya Patel, and this is the story of how my groundbreaking cancer treatment became the center of a billion-dollar betrayal that nearly destroyed my family's pharmaceutical empire. But to understand what happened that day in the boardroom, you need to know how it all began. Growing up, my Uncle Robert wasn't just the CEO of Patel Pharmaceuticals, he was my hero. While my father handled the business side as CFO, Uncle Robert was the visionary, the one who turned our small family company into a global pharmaceutical leader. He was also the one who encouraged my love of science, who bought me my first microscope when I was 10, who supported my decision to pursue medical research instead of business school. The future of this company will be in innovation, he used to say, beaming proudly when I earned my PhD in molecular biology at 26. Maya will lead us there. That's what made his betrayal so devastating. I spent 5 years developing a revolutionary cancer treatment using targeted nanoparticles. The breakthrough came in my private lab, working late nights after my regular duties as head of research at Patel Pharmaceuticals. The company funded some of my research, but the key innovations, the ones that made it actually work, came from my independent studies. The preliminary results were extraordinary. In trials with terminal patients who had exhausted all other options, 82% showed significant tumor reduction. More importantly, the side effects were minimal compared to traditional chemotherapy. We could target cancer cells with unprecedented precision, sparing healthy tissue almost entirely. But there was a catch. The production method I developed was remarkably cost-effective. Each treatment would cost about $200 to manufacture. Uncle Robert wanted to price it at $850,000 per patient. It's standard industry practice, he argued during our first major disagreement. We need to recoup our research investment. The research was mostly mine, I countered. And I'm telling you we can price it at $5,000 and still make a healthy profit. This could help millions of people. His face darkened. You're naive, Maya. This isn't about helping people, it's about business. That's when I started noticing changes in him. The uncle who had once praised my idealism now mocked it. The man who taught me that science should serve humanity began talking only about profit margins and shareholder value. I also started noticing irregularities in the company's research data. Clinical trial results that seemed too perfect. Side effect reports that mysteriously disappeared. When I tried to investigate, I found my access to certain databases restricted. So I began keeping my own records. Every trial result, every lab report, every email, I documented everything. I installed private cameras in my lab and backed up all my research to secure servers. Most importantly, I filed certain key patents under my own name rather than the company's. Uncle Robert noticed. You seem distracted lately, he mentioned casually one evening as I was working late, spending a lot of time on documentation. Just being thorough, I replied, not meeting his eyes. FDA approval requires detailed records. He lingered in my doorway. You know, Maya, loyalty to family is everything in this business. Your father and I built this company from nothing. We expect the next generation to protect that legacy. The threat was clear, but I pretended not to notice. Of course, Uncle Robert. That's why I'm being so careful with the research. 2 weeks later, I discovered why he'd been concerned. Hidden in the company's sealed records were disturbing reports. Failed trials covered up, dangerous side effects hidden, research data manipulated to make results look better than they were. My uncle hadn't just been cutting corners, he'd been deliberately falsifying research to rush drugs to market. I gathered my evidence carefully, making sure everything was duplicated and secured. Then I contacted the FDA quietly, requesting a thorough audit of our research protocols. The day before the audit was scheduled, Uncle Robert called an emergency board meeting. As I walked into the boardroom, I knew something was wrong. My father wasn't there, but Uncle Robert's new allies were board members he'd brought in over the past year, all focused on maximizing profits at any cost. We've discovered a serious breach of company policy, Uncle Robert began, his voice carrying none of the warmth I remember from childhood. Dr. Patel has been conducting unauthorized research, attempting to steal company patents for personal gain. My heart raced, but years of laboratory work had taught me to keep my hands steady and my face calm. Furthermore, he continued, she's been accessing restricted files, violating multiple NDAs. Security will escort her out. All her research and patents now belong to Patel Pharmaceuticals. The board members nodded in approval. They'd already decided. This wasn't a meeting, it was an execution. One thing first, I said, standing slowly. You might want to check the real research data. All of it, including the sealed files. Uncle Robert's face tightened. Security. As two guards approached, I smiled. The FDA audit team arrives Monday morning. They're particularly interested in the hidden trial results from the last 5 years. The ones showing what really happened to those test subjects. The color drained from his face. He knew exactly what I was talking about. You wouldn't dare, he whispered. This is family. Yes, I replied sadly, it is. As security escorted me out, I heard him already on the phone, barking orders to destroy files. But it was too late. Everything was already safely documented, backed up, and in the hands of federal investigators. What happened next would shake the pharmaceutical industry to its core and prove that sometimes protecting family legacy means exposing uncomfortable truths. Monday morning arrived with a media circus outside Patel Pharmaceuticals' headquarters. Someone had leaked news of the FDA audit, and reporters were swarming the parking lot. I watched the live coverage from my apartment, where I'd spent the weekend fielding calls from journalists and preparing for what was coming. My father finally called Sunday night. Maya, what have you done? His voice was tired, defeated. Your uncle says you're trying to destroy the company. Dad, have you checked the sealed trial records? Really looked at what's been happening? A long pause. I handle the finances, not the research. Maybe it's time you did. The FDA audit team arrived precisely at 9 a.m. 4 investigators led by Dr. Sarah Chen, the agency's top compliance officer. Security tried to delay them in the lobby, but federal badges have a way of opening doors. I'd arranged to meet them there, bringing my complete documentation. Uncle Robert's face went pale when he saw me walk in with Dr. Chen. This is a private company matter, he began, but Dr. Chen cut him off. This is a federal investigation into potentially criminal research violations, she stated flatly. Dr. Patel has provided evidence of systematic data falsification and concealment of adverse events in multiple drug trials. We're here to verify these claims. For the next 6 hours, the audit team combed through records, interviewed staff, and compared my documentation with official company files. Despite Uncle Robert's weekend cleanup effort, you can't erase every trace of fraud from interconnected research databases. The truth has a way of leaving fingerprints. My God. My father whispered as he reviewed the evidence. Years of manipulated trial data, hidden deaths, suppressed safety warnings, all in the pursuit of faster approvals and higher profits. Robert, what did you do? Uncle Robert's corporate mask finally cracked. I built this company, he shouted. Everything I did was to make us stronger. These regulations, these price controls, they're killing innovation. Sometimes you have to bend the rules to do what's necessary. Necessary? I stepped forward, holding up a file. Was it necessary to hide the deaths of 18 patients in the Cardiolux trials? To bury reports of liver failure? Those people had families, Uncle Robert. They trusted us. The boardroom fell silent. Dr. Chen's team had heard enough. Within hours, news broke that the FDA was suspending all of Patel Pharmaceuticals' current drug trials pending a full investigation. Our stock price plunged 60% before trading was halted. What followed was a corporate earthquake. The board forced Uncle Robert's immediate resignation. Federal investigators descended on the company, uncovering years of systematic fraud. Class action lawsuits were filed on behalf of patients and families affected by the hidden side effects. But the biggest shock came from my father. After reviewing all the evidence, he called an emergency shareholder meeting. As CFO and majority shareholder, he announced, his voice firm despite his obvious pain, I am appointing Dr. Maya Patel as interim CEO. She alone has demonstrated the integrity and commitment to science that this company was founded on. Uncle Robert exploded from his seat. You can't. She's destroying everything we built. No, my father replied quietly. You did that when you chose profits over people's lives. The transition wasn't smooth. Several board members resigned in protest. Key executives left. But those who stayed helped me rebuild the company with a new foundation. Absolute transparency in research, ethical drug pricing, and a commitment to accessibility. My cancer treatment became our flagship product, priced at $5,000 per course. Enough to ensure sustainability while remaining accessible. It quickly became the standard of care worldwide. The lower price point actually increased our total revenue as more hospitals and insurance companies could afford to offer it. Uncle Robert attempted to sue for wrongful termination, claiming I had orchestrated a corporate coup, but faced with overwhelming evidence of his fraud, he ultimately accepted a plea deal with federal prosecutors. The man who had once been my hero went to prison for 8 years. The hardest part was facing him one last time before his sentencing. He had aged decades in just a few months. I just wanted to know why. I said, "You taught me that science was about helping people." He looked away. The world changed, Maya. Big pharma, shareholders, quarterly reports, the pressure to deliver profits corrupts everything it touches. I thought I could control it, direct it toward a greater good. Instead, it controlled me. 1 year later, Patel Pharmaceuticals had transformed. Our new ethical research protocols became an industry standard. Other companies, facing public pressure, began reviewing their own pricing strategies. The phrase "the Patel model" entered the business lexicon as an example of how pharmaceutical companies could be both profitable and ethical. My father retired but stayed on as an advisor, helping me navigate the complex world of corporate leadership. "You know," he said one evening, "your grandfather started this company in his garage, mixing basic medicines for our community. He always said that profit should follow purpose, not lead it. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that." The cancer treatment has now helped over 2 million patients worldwide. We receive letters every day from people who would never have been able to afford it under the old pricing model. Each one reminds me why I chose science over business in the first place. Last week, I gave a keynote speech at the International Pharmaceutical Ethics Conference. Looking out at the audience of researchers, executives, and regulators, I shared our story, not just the scandal, but the transformation that followed. The true cost of medicine isn't measured in dollars, I concluded. It's measured in lives saved and suffering eased and hope restored. When we forget that, we lose not just our integrity, but our humanity. The old guard of pharmaceutical executives still grumbles about the Patel model, cutting into profit margins. But a new generation of healthcare leaders is embracing the idea that medicine can be both accessible and profitable. My private lab remains my sanctuary, though now it's considerably better equipped. I still work late nights, still get excited about new discoveries. But now I have a team that shares my vision, that understands why we do what we do. Uncle Robert was released early for good behavior last month. He sent me a letter from his retirement in Florida. "You were right. I forgot what really mattered. The company is better in your hands." The letter sits in my desk drawer, next to my first microscope, the one he gave me so many years ago. Both serve as reminders that sometimes protecting a legacy means being willing to tear everything down and rebuild it the right way. Yesterday, a young researcher brought me promising results from a new Alzheimer's treatment trial. Her eyes shone with the same excitement I once felt presenting my cancer research. "The production costs are low," she said hesitantly, "but the potential market value." I smiled, remembering another conversation from what felt like a lifetime ago. "Tell me about the patients first," I said. "Profit will follow purpose. Because in the end, that's what saved not just our company, but our soul."